Everyone knows what the butterfly effect is, right? The whole one seemingly small inconsequential action rippled over and over creates something unrecognizable? Well, that may be a bit dramatic, but in this case the title isn't clickbait. Back in 2019, I was getting ready to live in an apartment for the first time away from home. I was sharing a room with a friend and I thought that we could use some sort of entertainment. It was my second year of college, and at the time I remember people saying, "Oh, have you watched this yet?" Or "What about that?" There was always talks about the various movies and TV shows that I just had to watch. But if you're like me in the slightest, there are just too many options and recommendations out there, that it becomes way too overwhelming to choose. Another part of it for me is the whole sunk cost feeling. The fallacy that there's something better I could be doing with my time. So I decided to do something a bit drastic. I went onto eBay and I looked up mystery DVD box, and there were thousands upon thousands of listings available. So I looked through a couple and settled on one that seemed decently priced and with good reviews on the seller side. About a week later, a box arrived on my door with 100-ish DVDs. Now you're probably wondering, okay, yeah, why did you get more media to choose from then? Don't you have like a streaming service? Yes, I do. And did. The reason why I bought them was to give myself a physical representation of my choices. When I would pick one from the pile and watch it, it would be removed from the selection, therefore getting myself closer to finishing the box. The good and bad news about this box of DVDs was it was 90% movies, with the rest being either TV shows or weird screensaver things. So all in all, the commitment time on each disc would be a lot less than if I was trying to pick up a show like Breaking Bad or Grey's Anatomy, which have hours and hours of content. Having a 1 to 2 hour movie allowed it to be more of a one and done, which I preferred at first anyways, so me and my roommate got to work. We set up the DVDs onto a shelf and decided we each would be able to pick a couple to choose from. On our first selection, we chose The Hills Have Eyes.
2 hours later.
Yeah, not a great start. The Hills Have Eyes from 2006 is a remake on another movie of the same name. It is essentially a horror movie where a family gets stranded in the desert and are picked off one by mutants who live out there. It is really graphic and uncomfortable overall, so this is not one I can recommend to anyone. So after that first one, we needed something a little bit more lighthearted, such as The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Guard! Get your big flat feet over here! I'm a dying of thirst! Now you hurry up or I'll tear this place down!
Alright, quiet down, Joe. Judge Thatcher wants to talk to you.
Now this is what I'm talking about. Rough anime movies with really weird dialogue and action? This is the perfect material to watch with a friend. We enjoyed this one quite a bit, I will say. Luckily, this one is available on YouTube for free, so I would recommend you check this one out. But yeah, the next few movies came and went, some more notable than others. During the first year of having this box of DVDs, the ones that stuck out were Eagle Eye, Walk the Line, The Town, The Weatherman, Holiday Fire, Garfield, Zombieland, Pinocchio 3000, and Scrubs Season 1. Now I said we were watching these primarily, but there were some other things that we watched as well that were on streaming too. See, even though I was ecstatic about trying a bunch of new movies and shows that I'd never seen, the limited options were not favorable to my roommate. So even though we watched a bunch of them together in the first year, we had to mix it up to maintain some sort of sanity. Going back to the ones I just mentioned, there are two I want to clarify a bit on. Firstly is The Holiday Fire. This is the screensavery type video. We thought at the time, which was close to Christmas, that it'd be pleasant to put this on and go to bed while it plays. To our dismay, it actually constantly loops and somehow got louder and louder. That may be just a hazy memory of waking up in the middle of the night with the flashbang of the fire on the TV blasting some Bing Crosby Christmas songs, but I do remember being super sweaty and disoriented while we scrambled to find the remote to shut the damn thing off. That specific experience couldn't quite be replicated using YouTube. Maybe YouTube would be worse, as either ads would start playing, or it auto-playing to something entirely, like Scotland Forever.
Scotland Forever!
And the other one is Scrubs Season 1. Going into this, all I knew was that it was a medical show. That's it. To my surprise, this was mainly a comedy, which worked extremely well here. I got so invested in Scrubs that not only did we watch it on Hulu after finishing the first season on DVD, but we managed to watch the first 4 complete seasons in what felt like a week. It probably took longer than that, but the shell shock of discovering how many episodes we ingested into our veins put the show on hold. To this day, that is as far as I've gone. due to the overall fear of being sucked in and forever lost to the reality of time. Oh, right, Dr. Cox is the best character by far. No question on that. Shortly after Scrubs left our lives, something new entered. When COVID came along, I didn't know how I wanted to continue the box of DVDs. Due to it, college classes went virtual and there wasn't really a point at being at college when we could be at home trying to play the whole thing safe. So I took a number of DVDs that were next and brought them home. Here I watched a few on my own. The notable ones being Faster, The King's Speech, Free Your Mind, and Spider-Man 2. In the few months between COVID appearing and being home to when we inevitably got another place to stay, I really only watched like 8 DVDs. Faster was honestly up there for its overall action, and I found it pretty amusing that Dwayne "The Rock" Hard Johnson hardly spoke. It was refreshing having a mainly silent protagonist with some mystery thrown in there. Of course, Spider-Man 2 is a classic, one of the best superhero movies of all time, so that was a treat to pop that one in. Funny enough, I had Spider-Man 1 as well in that box, but it was just the bonus features. That is one of the suck things about some of these. On occasion, either the disc was missing, the case was destroyed, or just the wrong thing was in there. But that is something that was few and far between, thankfully. Plus, on the bright side, the overall price for the box of them was around $30 to $35, which is around 35 cents a DVD. To rent any of the titles that I got from the box would be $2 a movie at least, or on some streaming service. So there are a lot of upsides to going physical versus a digital route, at least with movies from 2015 and before. The newer stuff kinda ranges with its physical price, but I digress. The main reason why I titled the video the way I did is because of year 2 of the box. Coming back from the COVID hiatus, there was a new player in the mix, another roommate. Better yet, this new roommate was a childhood friend of mine who went to a different high school, and we actually lost touch until randomly seeing each other in college one day. That alone was such a crazy circumstance that it makes for an even larger butterfly effect. But the main thing that came to the table was another person who was willing to dive into the DVDs. Since he had not been part of the first batch, this was brand new to him. While for me and the other roommate, we'd gone through the ringer a little bit. But me and my friend proceeded to watch a ton of movies and shows together in a rapid style rate. It would always be pretty impromptu, like having dinner, pop one in. Coming back from class, already have the next one ready to go. We were fiending. All was good until it started feeling a bit repetitive. See, before this, I was always the one who was willing to watch these DVDs at any rate. But with my friend now, he was more willing than even I was. And I don't know if it was the constant watching, the content we were watching, or just living together for the first time, but it started being something I was unexcited to do. So there was a bit of a hiatus from watching these closer to wintertime. Thankfully, there were plenty of other things for us to do, right? Well, what I ended up finding out was we hadn't quite reconnected from when we were apart during those years in high school. We just kind of rushed into the fray and was excited to do the movies and hang out that we kind of skipped the whole getting to know each other again. Once the DVDs were out of the picture, it felt kinda empty. The lack of the DVDs really emphasized what our relationship had become, just content watching buddies. And that feeling stuck with me through that Christmas break we spent apart. Was this all that we had between us? Before too long, we came back to the apartment, and I made more of an effort to be friends first and leave the watching as an activity for us to share instead of the only thing we do together. At first, there were some success, but eventually it kind of went back to the same thing again. And when I thought all hope was lost in rekindling what we had, he appeared.
Miles.
Howdy, Normie.
I'm okay.
Jack London's The Call of the Wild is a very famous story originally written in the early 1900s. There have been countless movies made based on it. And in this very specific instance, a 13-episode television show was adapted and released in the year 2000, which is the one that we had the luck of the draw in acquiring. Now, what happened to all that about having nothing else to do but watch stuff? Well, nothing really. But in watching Call of the Wild's first 8 episodes included in our DVD set, life as the two of us knew it had completely changed. Firstly, I will say the second we loaded up, there was nothing all that special. A 2-part pilot, which pretty much is a close adaptation to the book. From there, it introduces a new cast of characters and developing plot lines. One of the most important duos in the original work is between Buck the dog and John the human. Their relationship is always the core to the story. Spoiler in all the Call of the Wild media, by the way, but John is known to be as dead as a doornail by the time the ending comes around. However, this is one of 2 times where this is not the case. This fact alone made us excited to see how cracked this John would be. And let me tell you, he's busted.
I ain't scared of you, Thornton!
Don't hang me. Don't hang me. You can't hang me.
You know, Soapy, the law around here is scattershot at best.
You ain't no lawman. You ain't allowed to hang me.
Most of the time, we just make it up as we go along.
Won't happen again. I'm gonna mend my ways. Just don't kill me.
If I let you go, and I'm saying if, do you promise never to come back to these parts again?
Yes.
What's that? I can't hear you.
I promise.
A good choice. Take care of him, son.
This man is a beast in this show. The funniest thing is he's not even the main character. The main character is his stepson Miles, who is the real owner of Buck in this show. Beyond John's crazy feats, there was an exact moment that everything in her psyche had changed. Episode 3, The Attack, features a villain of the week type character, Reese, who is a ringleader in a dogfighting ring. He proves without a shadow of a doubt to be the rightful owner of Buck. But through some trials and tribulations, the town turns on Reese, kicking him out, leading Buck and Miles to be reunited. The next couple episodes carry on as normal until episode 6.
Kid. Remember me, kid?
Reese.
The very same.
Jaws to the floor. Wojak's pointing at the screen in disbelief. This was a moment of pure adrenaline, and the moment we realized what masterful piece of art we were witnessing. Moments before, we were unaware, slightly uninterested, going through the motions. Within a few words, we had found a new passion. Call of the Wild. Through the next handful of episodes in the DVD, we were enjoying every minute of it. But there is a catch. We only had the first 8 episodes. Thankfully, the other 5 were readily available on Amazon Prime, which we quickly flew through. Despite the really rough ending and couple episodes there at the end, we were full steam ahead. I shortly after found another Call of the Wild movie on VHS while thrifting, which we also quickly plowed through too. That spark of watching had been reignited to a maximum level. Outside of Call of the Wild, which I will save for another day, we cranked out a ton of movies. By the time our lease had ended, we'd watched nearly 40 movies/DVDs from the pile. While that may not sound super impressive, keep in mind that in the first year of watching them amounted to about 30, and the feeling of burning out was quickly approaching. Now I literally have at least a quote or two from each of the DVDs we watched while doing this box, but I think it's more important to skip forward a bit to the next year. This is what I call the Nick Mancuso Renaissance. What Call of the Wild did for us in our interest in DVDs again, Nick Mancuso was a whole other beast to tackle. Remember how I said his version of the John character is one of the strongest in all the adaptations? Well, we thought it'd be pretty amusing to narrow our watching focus to this actor, as we really enjoyed his performance in Call of the Wild so much. What we found was yet another hole to dig ourselves into. The next movie we watched was Under Siege, which stars Steven Seagal and Tommy Lee Jones. This movie honestly slaps pretty hard. It's got great action, witty dialogue, and some really dumb one-liners.
So who are you? Are you like some special forces guy or something?
I'm just a cook.
A cook?
Just a lowly cook.
Oh my god, we're gonna die.
Nick Mancuso's character plays a relatively minor role, but we saw a huge shift in personalities. In this film, he's a minor villain, not the great hero we saw before with Call of the Wild. This made us wonder if we had chosen a good guy to follow. We brushed that thought and continued on to the next one, Under Siege 2, where a runaway train is the base of operations for hackers who plan to blow up the White House. It's a bit of a crazy story with Steven Seagal's character just casually on the train at the same time. Oh, and also Mike from Breaking Bad is here.
What's going on, guys?
Someone's been shot.
Where? Here.
The second movie just manages to be even funnier and really sticks with a completely different tone altogether.
What am I doing? Oh, I'm making a bomb.
So many great one-liners. We even get more of Nick Mancuso's character here. He's a bit more gruff, but he has a lot more of a mainline presence as a CIA member here. These two movies were great overall, and really added some depth to the range that Nick Mancuso could play. At least from two newcomers' perspectives anyways. From there we continued dabbling with some other Call of the Wild adaptations, just to see what we missed. We had Clark Gable's rendition, Harrison Ford's version, as well as Snoopy's? Well, that's kinda weird. Huh? That's a lot of weird circumstances. It seems like a lot of prominent figures have made their way into one of these adaptations. But is there some closer meaning?
Fellas, I think I'm going back to Seattle. Start my own general store.
Wait, is this more than just an adaptation of the source material? Is this telling us more than we thought to think? Is the story of Call of the Wild about an endless cycle? One where you end up in the same situations as before? One of self-awareness due to a stupid line of dialogue that raises a nod to a different adaptation altogether? He's thinking of opening a general store. When does he do that? In the TV series? Then why does Buck look different in each of these? Now that I think of it, why is the TV series the only one where it's a Husky and not a German Shepherd Bernard mix? Was there more to this than we thought? Okay, back on track. Those fleeting thoughts can be dangerous fan theory territory if we aren't careful. Now, what else do we have for old Nick Mancuso? Avalanche Alley is one of those straight-to-DVDs, or in this case VHS films, that you would normally find at a retailer for a couple bucks. This one focuses on a rundown ski resort that is trying its luck in getting some new customers. They bring in some X Games-like competitors and have a somewhat large event promoting it. In the background we see the ski resort owner, his new girlfriend, and his old mentor trying to decide how best to run the place. The owner of the resort is in debt, and is trying to find new and exciting ways to do things differently, which his girlfriend, who is a bit younger, yikes by the way,
I love you.
You just like to see me tied up.
Is leading the charge and doing new things. The third player in the mix is Scott, the mentor, played by Nick Mancuso, who drunkenly mopes around wanting things to stay the way they are and believes that there's no need for change. This movie as a whole is trying to do a lot in a ton of different ways. We have some high-octane action sequences with snowboarding and skiing, there's some romance in there, we have Nick Mancuso being passed out most of the time. It's pretty great. But best yet is the avalanche-related activities. See, there are bombs planted to force an avalanche so the resort can operate smoothly without risking the safety of visitors. But through a whole lot of miscommunication and general teen angst, things don't go to plan.
Avalanche!
Oh man.
There's a lot going on here, but to brief it up, the ending chase involves Nick Mancuso being in charge of disarming the bombs, the owner rescuing any survivors, including his girlfriend,
You just like to see me tied up.
and the rush to safety at the end. But what we were not prepared for is one of the most heartbreaking deaths in history.
Oh, shit!
Yep, that's right. Our beloved hero, Nick Mancuso, dies. Despite how strong his character is in Call of the Wild, it couldn't stop him from blowing up on the mountain. And with that final rush to safety sequence, another bombshell goes off.
Now that's what I'd call a Bruce Willis moment.
Are you shitting me? After all that, this is what we're left on?
We are jungle creatures, it's the darkness.
And then a banger comes out of nowhere? Yeah, we are very invested now.
It's that heresy of knowledge. To describe it, we believe as being one with a hand in love. See, I got my hand, well, it's my soul with me.
So what happens next, you may be asking? Well, we plowed through several films for both Nick Mancuso and through that original box of DVDs. Some films were great and meaningful, and then you had some bizarre music video-esque experiences. At some point in the future, I want to do a much larger deep dive on the films Nick Mancuso was in, as they are really bizarre and inadvertently connected between each other in one way or another. But for the sake of time, I want to bring everything back to Call of the Wild. The show, the movies, everything. Except the book. We never did end up reading the book it was based on. Well, at least not recently. I had to do a book report on it in like 7th grade, but I did not think much of it until we started watching the series. But the main commonalities in Call of the Wild stem from a dog being forced into the Yukon from home in California. So at some point in late 2021, there became talks, mostly jokingly, but still talks about the idea of us taking Buck's journey to the Yukon. What a blasphemous idea. Nothing like that would. I promise not to bite. Fuck. So yeah, let's be clear. Yes, we went on a Call of the Wild themed road trip. Yes, we did do everything by car. Yes, it took over 3 weeks. Yes, we did make it to Jack London State Park and stayed at the Jack London Lodge. However, back in the summer of 2023, there were wildfires spreading across the Yukon region, and the smoke from those fires made it all the way back to the northern United States. So due to that, we never did make it to the Yukon. However, we did get something out of the trip. That's right, baby. Gambling addictions. On the first 4 days of the trip, we crossed through a good number of states, until we got to Louisiana, where the only Margaritaville that has a casino is located. And unbeknownst to us, I would win like $2,000 in 30 minutes, forever and ever changing the course of my brain's development. And the coolest thing about getting a gambling addiction is it is technically a Call of the Wild reference.
I'll be happy to write you a check.
It's cash or gold, or I open you up.
So as they say, what goes around comes around.
2 weeks later.
Cheers to Jimmy. May he rest in peace. And as we ended the trip the following day, we reflected on how we got there. Through many long nights and drives, a long, long night at the Big Texan Motel, several roadside attractions, alien beef jerky, Vegas, also Disneyland was in there, but mainly from the countless Nick Mancuso movies, the Call of the Wild adaptations, and most importantly, that $30 mystery box that I bought for fun 4 years prior. Without that single dumb purchase, there may not have been a trip in an experience quite as memorable as this one. If you never try anything new, everything stays the same. Thank you for watching.